Welcome to Pigeon River Farm, doing farming right. I'm Robert Brown, the owner of Pigeon River Farm. Thank you for viewing. Well, good evening. In tonight's episode, we're going to talk about small farms versus big ag and nutrient showdown, as I call it. The true cost of food quality is a deceptive kind of thing to look at. What's your desire for nutrient-rich food? I would have to gather that a lot of the audience doesn't even understand exactly what nutrient-rich is. So let me give you some examples. One of our primary businesses is the layer. We have layer hens. We go with heritage breed hens. We have very little, if any, health problems. The next item that we have in livestock is we raise Highland cattle. My vet bill has been almost nil for decades, other than occasional injury, where you go to a regular large corporate ag operation, and let's go back to the poultry operation again. They live in a bath of pharmaceuticals to keep them birds healthy, as they can be under pharmaceuticals. Same thing with the meat birds. Then we get into cattle. The cattle are vaccinated. Now they're going in and using genetically modified shots to benefit the cattle. Is it benefiting the cattle? I'm not sure, but it's definitely going to have an effect as this gets into the food stream. Again, another item that we raise and very proud of is our goat operation. Our goat operation, again, very little, if any, health problems, but again, all goes back to how we treat the soil. So that nutrient-rich environment is done by applying biologicals, by putting in them very micronutrients into the soil so the plants can bring it back up and the animal can digest it and get into the system. Same thing with our vegetable operation. Now let's switch gears here and talk about big corporate ag. Big corporate ag does not have any of the restraints, responsibilities that organic natural farming has. They're all about price, and it is cheap as you possibly can. Quality is only done from a perspective of uniformity. When you look at a given soybean off a chemical farm, it is uniform. You look at one off of a organic farm, not so much, because of the plant diversity. So monocropping is the first thing you see when you look at big ag. They don't do anything with diversity at all. So what happens when you don't have diversity? Well, ultimately you don't have a nutrient-rich environment, because if you're planting only two plant species, let's say corn and beans, that's the most common in the United States, Brazil, a lot of the other major agricultural settings throughout the world. You pretty much, within a few decades, strip mine that soil for all the nutrients that we, as humans, as the animals need, are basically stripped out and no longer available. When you run multi-species on a pasture, when you plant a diversity, our pastures alone have in excess of 20 different plant species in any given section of the pasture. That alone is, each one of them plants is going to have a different need, give off a different nutrient value, and as the livestock eat that brings that nutrient back in. No way would the big corporate operations even consider this. This would be insanity from their business model. They are on the bottom line. So when you blast it with glyphosate, Roundup, and you go in and you simply plant up and use as much chemical fertilizer to get it as optimized as possible, you're looking at yields in corn. When I was a young lad, way back when, typically 70, boy, if you had 100 bushel per acre, that was phenomenal. And so we're going back looking at the 70s. Now, currently, you're looking at 300 bushel per acre is now starting to be viewed as a little bit on the low side in high production areas. So this is something we got to think about. If to get that level of volume, Could quality even be an index? It can't. I try to avoid, I look at the farms that we purchase our feed from, and I know so many of the other small sustainable farms do the same thing. We don't look at price. Price is a secondary to us. The nutrient quality, because if I buy cheap, let me explain how expensive cheap is. When I buy cheap, that is when my health related problems with my livestock start. That is when I ended up seeing poor performance. So I'm relying on the micronutrients, the quality of the food that is out there for my livestock. This is what I pass on to my customers. The promise I and thousands of small sustainable farmers put out there. So when you're purchasing something at the store, I know the availability is one of the biggest problems. And it's a chicken and the egg, pardon the French here, but it's a chicken and egg situation. If small farms aren't able to grow and prosper and become more larger identities by having the capital and ability to buy the land and the resources, you as a consumer will never have the luxury to have high quality food. And with the government policies and corporate policies, government has a lot to do with it because they pick winners and losers in the farm industry, trust me, like in most industries. We are also dealing with a massive corporate investment. It's a worldwide investment. So there is very little consideration for food quality. It's just almost non-existent. It's only a cosmetic concern. When you look at the way agriculture works, it's about cosmetics in the food. It has nothing to do with the quality of the food itself. So please give this some really serious thought when you're spending your dollar or whatever currency you're in, or wherever in the world you're in. Support local ag and we will support you. I thank you and have a great evening.